Is it time for you to make a big change in your life? For most people, they would answer yes to that question, but guess what? Most people won't do anything about it. And why is that? Because most people tend to resist change rather than embrace change. What I'm going to share with you in this video is why people resist change and what you can do to overcome that resistance and make the changes in your life that are necessary for you to get to the next level. My name is Phil Ciccio, and I've been working with people for decades, helping them to make changes in their life, to become better, to have more, be more, and do more. And one of the things that I've found with working with so many people is that the reason why they resist change is because they create a story in their head of what the outcome might be for that change well before it even happens. Understanding this is critical. Think about this for a moment. Most people, they start to think about change and they play a movie about the future, what might happen on the other side, whether that is getting into a better relationship, getting a new job, moving to a different country, moving to a different part of this country, buying a new home, whatever it might be. People start to then create the story of what that might look like. In the beginning, the story is positive. You see all of these wonderful things showing up in your mind, okay, about what it's going to be like. But then when you finally make that commitment to do it, the story begins to change. Now, rather than seeing the beauty of what it is that you want, you start to see all the things that could go wrong, okay? Because we have this sort of negative mindset, most people do, and they start to become their own internal naysayers, right? Their own critic. Well, what if I lose money? What if this new relationship is worse than the one that I'm in? What if something bad happens, right? And we start to play a movie of worry versus a movie of hope. And so what I want you to think about right now is, in order to make changes, that you've got to change that story and you've got to keep with that story. So a couple of things that you can do to help you really start to embrace change versus resist it is, one thing for sure is find out exactly what you want and then what you don't want, okay? It's really important. I hate to say to be negative and think about what you don't want, but what you don't want is what creates some of the pain that you need to actually move forward. What you do want creates the pleasure. Now, most people, okay, are moved by either pain or pleasure. You are moved by one of those. So you're either trying to move towards pleasure or move away from pain. Identifying which style of movement is yours would be really critical in you being able to actually make that change. So what do you want and what don't you want? And then either one of those, okay, is going to either create some emotions for you. The one that creates the strongest emotion, all right, is the one that applies to you. So when you think about what you don't want and it's so painful to you versus what you do want and it's not as pleasurable, then you are a person who's moved by pain. So get clear on what it will cost you not to make that change. So we're increasing the amount of pain that's going to take to move you past that story in your head, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Now, if you find that the pleasure is more engaging for you or creates more emotion, then you have to think about what you will gain if you make this change, okay? So these are the two areas we need to focus on. What am I going to gain, or what is it going to cost me, okay? For me, it's all about pleasure. I think about what I'm going to gain. It makes me feel good and I move. If somebody tries to inflict pain on me and says, you need to change or else this will happen, that doesn't motivate me, okay? So let's go back to the story, because this is really important. The story is important because your mind doesn't know the difference between what you're imagining and what's real. So if you create a story that gives you a sense of hopelessness, right? Hopelessness. If it gives you that, then the mind doesn't know that that story isn't true. So let's just say that you decided that you wanted to start your own company or, get a new job, and you start to play a story about what if it doesn't work out, and what if I lose money, and what if, it doesn't last. That is a story of hopelessness. The mind doesn't know that that story isn't true, so it actually gives you the same feelings in the body, the same anxiety, sadness, possibly depression, as if it was actually happening, but nothing's even happened yet. You might even still be at your job, right? So we have to be careful about this story. We need to change the story and make sure that we keep holding on to the new story of what it could be like on the other side, okay? Now, this is important. And so when we talk about hopefulness versus hopelessness, right? This is the key. This is a whole nother video I shot already, so please look it up, okay? The video is called Hopefulness versus Hopelessness, and it'll give you some more insight there, okay? The other thing that we need to make sure that we're doing when it comes to change is that we're actually taking action, right? We need to take action to break through. When we break through to the other side of whatever it is we're trying to make change on, even if it's just the first step, we start to build up some confidence that we can keep moving and create momentum. See, we need to get onto the other side of what's called the comfort zone, right? The reason why people don't embrace change and they resist is because they're comfortable even if it's uncomfortable. Imagine how many people live a life of quiet desperation, a life of discomfort, right? Where they're just comfortable enough, right? Even though they're uncomfortable. If that's you, we need to get you even more uncomfortable, okay? If you're a move away from pain type of person, or we have to show you how much more comfort you'll be outside of this particular comfort zone. Because no growth happens inside the comfort zone. All growth happens outside of the comfort zone. So this is what's happening essentially in your mind and your body while you're in the comfort zone and you're thinking about change. Here you are, you think about this new relationship or this new job or some new idea, something that you're going to start, right? You're comfortable right now and you have this idea in your mind. As you start to really think about this idea, and at first it sounds good and it feels good, eventually it begins to change into worry, right? When we start to worry about it not working out in the conscious part of our mind, at the subconscious level, the feeling part of our mind, it creates a feeling of fear. When we have worry and fear in our mind, it must be expressed through the body in anxiety. And so we start to get anxious about this change that hasn't even happened yet, right? And remember, it's still just a story in your head. And then ultimately, when you have worry and fear in the mind and you have anxiety in the body, this is where we begin to resist change. Because this is the moment of truth here, right? This is where we say, okay, I want to go through and get out of this comfort zone, but there's so much anxiety in my body right now, and I want to rid myself of the anxiety. There are two ways to rid yourself of that anxiety. One way is to not do it. Just don't do it. Give up on your idea. And so you go back to where you're comfortable. Guess what? The anxiety is gone because you're not going to do it anymore. However, what did you do to your self-image, right? What did you do to your self-esteem? You just gave up on an idea that you had, something that you wanted to do. So now you've lowered your self-image, your self-esteem, which ultimately in the long run is going to disserve you, not serve you. But temporarily, you've rid yourself of the anxiety. The other way to get rid of the anxiety is to just do it. Just push through that resistance, right? Get to the other side. Yes, there'll still be worry. There'll still be fear. There's going to be some anxiety. But you know, because you've done this before, once you're on the other side, the worry, the fear, and the anxiety dissipates. And suddenly you find yourself in a better place doing the thing that you wanted to do. And now you become comfortable there. So the next step is to get something else in your mind that you want to do that creates worry, fear, and anxiety, okay? Push through again, and every time you do that and you come out of the comfort zone and go past the comfort zone, break through, you grow. All growth happens outside of the comfort zone. No growth happens inside of the comfort zone. So whether the change works or not, it's irrelevant really, right? The change promotes growth. Now you're a new person. Even if it didn't work out, you've learned something new, you've become better, you've grown, you've gotten uncomfortable, you've gotten better at getting uncomfortable. And guess what? More often than not, it does work. And if it does work, great. You've accomplished your goal of change, right? And now you can move to the next thing that you want to do in your life. Nothing will happen if you stay in your comfort zone. So remember, all growth happens outside of the comfort zone. And when we create change in our mind and it's just a movie playing there without anything happening, it creates that level of anxiety. Don't let the story hold you back from whatever the possible reality is. Embrace change, push through the comfort zone, get on the other side. Your life will radically change.